They say accountants are blunt, but I prefer the term economically honest. Usually, I audit spreadsheets, but today, we are skinning the Blockman business model. Not for the revenue leaks, those are predictable. I am here for something more fragile. Perception. How a brand actually lives in the eyes of the people funding it. But let's get one thing clear before we start. I am a free agent now. No program, no star code on my shoulder. I am not in contact with any Blockman representative, which means this isn't feedback, it's an audit. I don't speak from impulse. I have studied accounting and professional ethics longer than I've been producing videos. And before you decide anything, keep in mind that this is a consumer review, not a financial guide. I am not your advisor. What you do with your time and money, that's your business. I'm just here to show you how the shop looks from the auditor's desk. And one thing that training made very clear, the moment you start treating people like expenses instead of assets, you start accumulating something worse than loss, which is moral debt. Okay, let's look at this through a Sherlock Holmes lens, because let's be honest, no one wants to sit through a pile of dry numbers. I have always admired Holmes, the way he can look at a speck of dust and see an entire crime scene. That is the level of precision I have applied to the shop we all browse every day. Now, Logic 101. In-app purchases are tethered to international exchange rates. When the dollar climbs, prices eventually follow. Most games don't update prices every single day, that would be chaos. They usually wait and do it in one big jump. But I've been tracking G-Cubes for 7 years. I have seen prices stay completely still for months, even while the market is swinging, only to see a sudden spike the moment the exchange rate hits a peak. That is the sticker shock that catches everyone off guard. The update itself isn't the problem, but in all these years of adjustments, we have never once seen the price swing back down when the market cools off. Yeah, I guess it's pretty simple math by only updating when the dollar is at its highest, but forgetting to recalibrate when it drops. The company is basically just maximizing the profit on that gap, and the wider they keep that gap, the more we end up paying for the exact same item. And when people started pointing this out, instead of getting a fairer system, we got a new top-up website. Well, from a business perspective, it is a smart play. It lets them bypass the middleman fees while keeping those high price points. It is efficient, and for them, it is definitely profitable. I'm not going to talk about the numbers, but for us, for the players who have to deal with these sudden jumps, you tell me. Now, credit where it's due, they are fast. After my exit video dropped, they actually overhauled the UI and the rewards. I haven't even bothered to check the new prices, though I did notice a Wukong egg for VIPs. Why an egg? And why Wukong? I'll leave that for the detectives in the comment to solve. And now every 10 days my mailbox pings. For a second, I am hyped. I think finally new event. But nope, it's just another link to the top-up site. They never used to spam us like this. Now it's a total rhythm, like Moriarty sending a letter just to remind us who is in charge. And here's the truth. Even if you already bought the pack, they still spam you, and if you get the same reward twice, they just swap it with some useless dress-up tickets. You can check my old video about it, and I got no compensation for that, so it works just for the first time. But when the shop gets more updates than the actual game, you are not really missing out, you're just missing out being an ATM. Now move over to the Discord, it is the same story. The top-up link is pinned at the top like a holy grail. It is the first thing and the last thing you see. And there is a fascinating contrast over here. Rule 3 essentially says, if you don't like it, there's a door. Yet they've glued the sales pitch to your forehead, so you are forced to read the price tag on your way out. It is a genius strategy telling the user they aren't forced to stay, while making sure the payment link is inescapable. And don't even get me started on the naming conventions. Between the random uppercase and lowercase letters, it is enough to give anyone with a sense of order a twitch in their eyes. I genuinely admire the creative ways they find to extract value. It's high-speed, high-efficiency business. I just wish that same energy was applied to the foundation, not just the storefront. And here's the latest twist under that shiny new UI. They've completely removed the tokens. In the past, we had the flexibility to choose how we spend our value. It is locked to G-Cubes only. On the surface, it looks like it's streamlining things. It might even look like it increases your G-Cubes count, but the new G-Cubes only amount is actually worth less than the old tokens. But I guess tokens aren't equal to G-Cubes? I don't know. To be fair, it makes perfect sense from a corporate perspective. It's classic case of shrinkflation. For example, you get smaller chips for the same price. If a company cannot raise the price any higher without causing a riot, they just gotta shrink the value inside the pack.
Page 3.
Sherlock knew that the most effective distraction is usually the most obvious one. In this case, the capybara. They're using the most harmless, universally loved animal in existence as a shield. Capybaras are so chill, aren't they? They will literally nap next to crocodiles, which is exactly the state they want us in, I assume. They want us to sit there looking cute, unbothered, and blissfully ignorant while the system is slowly eating us alive. The cost of being this observant, you lose the ability to just enjoy the cute skin, because all you can see is the hook hidden inside the bait. Let's talk about the audacity of the scale. On the Play Store, the maximum in-app purchase is capped at around 3.3 million rupiahs. At the website, we're seeing packs hitting 7.3 million rupiahs for a single bundle cubes. Meanwhile, the generous daily reward is a couple of tickets. Well, you can get around 700 in a year. Or you can buy a pair of pants worth less than $1. The math isn't just off, it is insulting. And speaking of rewards, can we talk about Paradise Island tokens? I have over 30,000 of them sitting in my account with absolutely nothing left to buy, and I cannot exchange them with any other token. At this point, I'm not playing a game, I'm just hoarding digital paper. I once broke down what it actually takes to reach VIP 10. We're talking a $1,000 entry fee here. I laid out the most logical path. You can either wait 5 to 8 years for your monthly cards to stack up 240,000 G-Cubes, or pay premium today and receive only around 100k. It is a massive time value disconnect, you either paying with nearly a decade of your life or paying a massive premium for a less product. When I pointed this out, they didn't fix the math, they just scrambled to change the UI the moment I dropped my exit video. It was a classic clean the house is actually living moment. It's like painting a sinking ship and hoping the passengers don't notice the water rising at their ankles, but purely from a business perspective, I get it. When someone starts looking too closely at your ledger, you pivot. It's a smart move, it's just very noticeable. Finally, I have to admire the hospitality here. Most platforms I joined, they treat the first impression as a commitment to player safety, but here, it feels like a preemptive strike. The rules in the main hub basically say, if you don't like our logic, there's the exit. Imagine walking into a bakery where a loaf of bread is 7.3 million rupiahs or almost $500, and when you ask why, the cashier just points to a sign that says,
"None is forcing you to be here."
Well, it is effective to end conversation without a headache, but plugging a top-up site implies a level of commercial maturity that the community management simply isn't matching. You have 120,000 members being moderated by volunteers while the business side focuses solely on revenue. It is a terminal blow to the brand's integrity. You don't have a professional product, you have a chaotic group chat with a cash register attached. And instead of a unified professional ecosystem, the brand is fractured across multiple disconnected hubs, and they behave like three-headed dragons. So the main hub is giving that firstborn energy, the onboarding is aggressive, the top-down priority is the payment link, and it treats the user like a nuisance to be managed while pinning a top-up ad to their forehead the moment they arrive. The top-up mailbox is not enough, they just make sure you don't miss it. The second head is the Skyblock server. It is actually the last born, but Plat was migrated to a new server. Anyways, it is obsessed with constitutions and legalistic fanfiction laws about secession and subversion designed to protect the ego of the gatekeepers. In this hierarchy, the booster role is treated as the king, while the active creators are often treated as an afterthought buried in broadcast channels managed by moderators. When I voted for the server creation, not the constitution, back in 2023, I was hoping that it can bridge the gap between players and developers. But after time, it becomes a playroom of thrones, not for the community. And the third one is Bedwars server. This one actually feels more grounded, more playful. But even here, the shadow of the other two heads is long. I remember being invited to the Bedwars beta with other YouTubers. And one moderator's first reaction was to ask what I was even doing there. At first, I felt the tension, an unwelcoming vibe. But looking back through a whole mission lens, I realized I might have been the one carrying the aura. I walked in expecting a welcome, but I was tailed by the heavy legalistic atmosphere by the second dragon. That moderator wasn't being rude, they seemed genuinely terrified of what my presence represented. So a public apology to that individual. I wasn't trying to subvert your system, I was just trying to enjoy the game. But that interaction was a revelation. It showed how the stigma created by one head's territorial rules has poisoned the well for everyone. Because of the hostile atmosphere in one corner, creators are now seen as threats in another. I took up the 2020 G-Star requirements, the initial investment. At that time, they demanded 200,000 average views, a bar set for the top 1%. So unless you're Matsun or Aman BG, you're basically cooked. They weren't building a partnership, they were building a factory. And guess what? I paid for that tax, chasing their numbers while my own brand's aesthetic was devalued to fit their machine. They even kept a clause to terminate anyone without notice. It wasn't support, it was a short leash. But that system is dead. The leverage they held vanished with the codes. Well, it feels like the management traded community loyalty for short-term data by giving codes to people who don't even play. They choose reach over relevance. But shouldn't it work? Veterans are treated like inefficient workers because we won't sacrifice depth for a cookie-cutter template. We saw potential in the incubator servers and regional projects, but they were abandoned for the same rigid Capybara. While I was inside, I watched creators try to negotiate for realistic terms. They were shut down by managers who hide behind the title but couldn't even hit their own KPI standards on a good day. They are blinded by their own constitution, favoring rigid rules over actual platform reality. You can send a message, but I realize words are a waste of breath. And the punchline, they found the motivation to slash the KPIs from 30,000 to 10,000. After I left the program, it proves those numbers weren't a guide, they were a fence. It is a pattern with them, they only react to something that is coming from the outside. Remember when the hacker thing happened, the response was pure melodrama. They handed scripts and expected creators to be their personal soldier, fighting their battles for them. I didn't do it because, at the end of the day, who is even actually on my side? Just me. And my other me. Alright, let's just wrap this up. It is clear that this brand has traded community trust for a strategy of high-speed extraction, prioritizing flashy distractions, and aggressive price hikes over economic stability and transparency, while the company attempts to manage its most dedicated players as mere factory parts and hide its factory flaws behind UI updates. The professional reality is that a sustainable empire cannot be built on a take it or leave it ultimatum. Even though they try to shut people up with street rules, the facts don't lie. By treating loyal fans like they don't matter and ignoring the basics, they're just running on fumes. They forgot that since players provide the attention that keeps them alive, the players are the ones who have the final say. So after checking out mentally in 2023, I stopped trying to fix the system and instead began observing its patterns, realizing that the structure isn't actually broken, but rather than performing exactly as designed. And I am reminded of what Johnny Depp said.
Everybody would love to be able to be themselves, but they can't, because they must fall in line with the person in front of them. You want to live that kind of life? I wish you the best. I'll be on the other side somewhere, you know.
So this cycle persists because it is built to keep you looking at the person ahead of you rather than toward the horizon. And if you are feeling that emptiness, it is simply because the realization that the line you were standing in doesn't lead anywhere. And ultimately, your journey is in your hands. If you still find joy in the game, continue to play, but recognize that you have the agency to decide your own path. Oh! Am I being flagged for using an owl to perform this video? I guess the game is finally afoot. I've officially broken the rule number 4. I'd say I'm sorry, but a detective's work is never done until the evidence is public. If the only way to see the truth as a consumer is to step outside the official lens they've drawn, then so be it.